So I took my family to an indoor water park this weekend, and their arcade had, get this, a Rabbids VR game. Who knew? Oh, I also ate far too many sweets and developed a canker sore on the tip of my tongue, so now I'm all worried I'm gonna sound weird and—
I have a canker sore on my lip and I keep poking at it with my tongue, but that's only making it worse.
Greetings, citizens! I'm Jeff, and thanks for tuning in to Nindie Nation episode 176. There's all kinds of games hitting the eShop nowadays, and we're here to give you a little rundown of which Nindies just might be worth your time. Head on down to the comments and tell me what stands out to you, and if you want to see any of these releases live during Nindies at Night this Thursday. After such a great week in episode 175, I'm happy to say this is looking like another great lineup. So hit that like button, subscribe if you're new here, and let's get right into it. These are the 14 notable new releases hitting the Nintendo Switch through Sunday, February 26th. First up this week on Tuesday the 21st is a game published by Atari, and I never know what to do with them. However, given the types of games they publish nowadays and the small developer Llamasoft leading the efforts, I'd say Akka R is a fit for Nindie Nation. As you can already tell, despite sounding like something you might say after stubbing your toe, Akka R is a trip. Apparently it was developed from scrap design docs from a game that never released back in the 80s too. Looks like a twin-stick shooter with elements from Robotron and Tempest, and if you can handle playing it without tripping balls, it kicks off the week for $19.99. Then we've got one release on Wednesday the 22nd, and it's a rare $50 Nindie. Now that's a big chunk of change, but I'm optimistic about this one because Binary Haze Interactive is publishing Redemption Reapers, the next game developed by AdGlobe, the team responsible for the wonderful Ender Lilies from just a couple years back. This time they're taking a very similar macabre theme, but building it into a turn-based strategy game. It's kinda like Fire Emblem if it were set in the world of Bloodborne. As with any game that looks this good, I have concerns about how it'll fare on the Switch, and especially at $50, it's certainly worth waiting for confirmation. Already arriving at the big Thursday drop, we've got a couple of good ones this week, as we're seeing the next big release by Inti Creates, the masters of retro 2D action, with Grim Guardian's Demon Purge. It's a Metroidvania that reminds me a lot of Touhou Luna Nights, where you explore a castle-like school which has been taken over by demons. You play as two sisters, which you can swap between on the fly, one of which is focused on guns and long-range attacks, and the other on melee weapons. They both have their own life bars, so if one fails, you can play as the other, and if you can make it back to where the other sister perished, you might have a chance to bring her back to life. It's a cool premise in a genre that rarely sees new ideas, and while I'm not the biggest fan of its anime-as-hell stylings, I rarely turn down the chance to see the latest from Inti Creates, so I'm looking forward to checking it out when Grim Guardians releases with a 10% discount for $22.49. One of my favorite solo developers is Orange Pixel, who predominantly makes games for mobile, but ports many of them over to the Switch, like Groundskeeper 2, Heroes of Loot, and Gunslugs. They're all simple arcade-style games that deliver bite-sized fun in short bursts, and that's the case this week with his release of Snake Core for $8.99. This is a great premise. It's like Snake, where you move around and try not to bump into anything or yourself, but you control a line of little military dudes warding off alien invaders. After finishing levels and collecting currency, you can upgrade your units and, depending on your loadout, can choose from multiple levels or objectives at any given time. We might check it out this week on Nindies at Night, but at this point, I've played enough of his games that I'm confident this one will also be a fun, action-packed time. Also, if you've ever wanted to learn about indie game development, check out Orange Pixel's YouTube channel. He discusses all aspects of being an indie dev on a weekly basis, and his videos are very candid, talking about ports, building games, working with publishers, and everything in between. I'll try to remember to put a link down in the description, but if I forget, just search for Orange Pixel. I have faith in you. You can do it. And then we've got what looks like a really fun run-and-gun platformer with lovely pixel art, great music, and just all-around good vibes, which make Planet Cube Edge a pretty enticing option when it releases for $14.99. Developed by Suna Entertainment and published by Firestroke, you follow a cute little robot trying to rid invaders who have broken into said robot's underwater science lab. The description touts precision platforming, full of running, gunning, jumping, and dashing, and in general, it looks like a game I'd also love to include on Nindies at night. Alright, at the end of last week's episode, I teased a turn-based strategy game called Tyrants Blessing, and after a lot of research on this game, I gotta say, if you're a fan of this genre, but you feel like it's just gotten tired over the past few years, this might be the game to check out. It's developed by Mercury Games Studio and published by Freedom Games, and releases for $19.99. Here's the pitch, at least to the best of my understanding. A big old bad guy came to the world, promising a utopia so long as everyone agreed to enter the world of the undead, or, basically die. You are one of the few remaining living people and are leading an uprising because, as it turns out, fighting and defeating the undead can actually bring them back to life, which is a key element in the gameplay too because your 20-member party is at the risk of permadeath. But even if they do fall in battle, you can chase them down later, defeat their undead shadow, and bring them back. So it's got this blend of roguelike and permadeath mechanics that are really intriguing. It's also got some life simulation elements where you make choices about how you spend your time. Do you progress the plot forward, let your party rest, go on side quests, or try to recruit new members? Each choice has an opportunity cost, and the way it's laid out, for some reason, makes me think of the Oregon Trail. Beyond those unique elements, most of the combat seems fairly traditional, but enemies telegraph attacks, and there's this concept of shadows that makes it sound like you can be attacked based on where you were the last turn, so that you have to plan your moves out a couple of turns in advance. And that part of the game reminds me of Into the Breach. So, lots of good inspiration and little unique twists here, but I will say this. The game only has a few reviews from its PC release last year, and they are very mixed. It boils down to if you're looking for something traditional like Fire Emblem or Final Fantasy Tactics, or, like I mentioned at the top, you want to see a different approach to the genre, and that's when the reviews fall into the latter camp and really seem to dig this. I'm going on and on about this game because I happen to fall into the camp of wanting to see some innovation in the genre, so I might be giving this one a shot for myself. I just really wish it had a demo. But I want to hear from fellow longtime strategy RPG fans. This sounds pretty cool, doesn't it? Am I on the right track here? Let me know. Then we got a couple of quickies from the category of meh. Midnight is Lost is a cute isometric puzzle game about pushing blocks around where you play as a cat who helps witches. The description claims you have to solve the puzzles backward, but never really explains what that means, so take that as you will. It's by Brazilian solo developer Robotizar Games and is published by Cubite Interactive for $3.99. Similarly, Dyadic is a 2016 PC game where two players help each other escape a trap-filled temple after stealing the ancient artifact within. It received mostly positive reviews, but seems like it'll only be a fit for those of you with a partner who's familiar with 2D puzzle platformers, and one you think you could make it through something like this without, killing each other. It's only $6 though, so it's not a huge gamble, but before we move on, get this. Not only is it developed by a team called Handsome Dragon Games, it's published by Bearded Ants. And just, I don't know, a handsome dragon and ants with beards seem like something we need to throw into an AI art generator, doesn't it? Friday the 24th rolls around with a lot of games to get excited about, and while we're going to save the easiest recommendation for last, I know there are a lot of people chomping at the bit for the release this week of Clive and Wrench by Dinosaur Bites and Numbskull Games. Having followed this game for almost the entire run of Nindie Nation's existence, the game just keeps getting better and better. And if you're a fan of classic 3D collectathon platformers, this is the game for you. It feels like the team took equal parts Mario 64 or Sunshine, Ratchet & Clank, and Banjo-Kazooie, then threw them all into a blender chock full of Millennium-era pop culture references. You'll see characters representing Lara Croft, Shrek, level homages to Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the old-timey westerns, and just about everything else in between. After having plans stolen for a time machine, Clive the Rabbit and Wrench, the literal monkey on his back, are thrust into a hub world where they pop between multiple portals to collect all the things that then open the next door to find, all the other things. You've got double jumps, butt stomps, long jumps, and the full moveset unlocked from the start, with the game designed to be accessible to newbies who just want to collect enough to progress, but a treat for the pros who want a speedrun timer, all kinds of crazy shortcuts to find, far more collectibles to find throughout every level, and extra worlds available for those who can track down everything. Seriously, if you were a gamer from like 1996 to 2003, this game was meant to capture your nostalgia and keep you smiling from ear to ear, and I can't wait for it. I've frequently shared that I think Numskull Games overprices their releases right out of the gate, so I'm happy to see that this one not only starts at $30, but it also launches with a 15% discount. So if you pick it up before release day, it's only $25.49.
See? Watching Nindie Nation the day it releases can even save you money.
Okay though, so here's the caveat. The game looks really good and seems to run really well. You know where this is going. Just keep your eyes peeled in case it doesn't pan out as well on the Switch. I am thinking though, this game was probably designed with the Nintendo fan in mind, so hopefully it was tested and optimized for the Switch. What do you think? Clive and Wrench doing it for you? Tell me down in the comments if you're excited about this one as I am. Then for something completely different, Remains is a first-person survival game built by a small team called Solo Q. After an accident in space, you find yourself floating among the debris, and over time must piece back together your space station, craft some tools, find a way to grow food, and just get from point A, floating alone in space, to point B, floating alone in space, but with hope of someday getting back home. It's definitely a slow burn of a game from what I've seen, but a cool twist on a formula we see almost every single week. Reviews have been very positive too since releasing in early access a year ago, so if you love the idea of getting scrappy to stay alive in the coldest, darkest, most isolated place imaginable, Remains just might be the game for you. Plus, it launches for a super reasonable, discounted price of $6.99.
Nice.
We recently saw 8-Bit Legit with their release of Nescape, and they're back this week with another 8-Bit throwback. This time working with Kunji Studio and Mega Cat Studios, Ronos Tail is a clever take on the top-down action puzzler, where you need to find the key in each of 47 levels and every step you take causes the floor below you to fall. It's charming and has been very well reviewed while bringing a variety of levels, environments, and ideas to explore, and it has a banger chiptune soundtrack too. Fans of NES-era puzzle games probably don't want to miss this one, and it can be all yours for only $7.99. If you haven't seen the drama behind the developer of The Outbound Ghost, you may not be familiar with Conradical Games. But if you want to see a new take on their first release, this week in partnership with Ratalaika Games, they revamp and re-release Loot Box Life Plus for $9.99. This is a Metroidvania, but with precision platforming at its core. After the world was destroyed by loot boxes, it's up to you to explore, gather, and then sell whatever trinkets you can find in order to buy loot boxes which increase your movement abilities. I can't say I've seen many Metroidvanias that choose not to focus on combat and/or exploration, so combined with the quirky premise and knowing the developer is good at what they do, I'm inclined to say that this is likely one of the better Ratalaika releases we've seen in a while. Then after getting over the initial shock of how much the trailer music sounds like the opening for Ocarina of Time, I was initially inclined to roll my eyes at yet another 80s retro arcade racer, but there's a few things going on here that I really dig about NeoDory Forever. First off, it's only $5, and second, it feels much less like Horizon Chase Turbo and more like last year's Slipstream, as developer Strobitano built it around speed and drifting, like Ridge Racer. You can race through a campaign, drive through an endless mode, or even just chill out and drive in a Zen mode, and all in all, it looks like a perfectly fine racer, especially when it comes in at $4.99. And last up this week is actually a collection of games, which is something I usually don't cover, but I was so excited that it has finally come to fruition that I just gotta gush for a second and see if I can convince more people to check out the Bit Trip Collection. Published by Cubic Games, but originally developed by Choice Provisions, the best-known game in this collection is definitely Bit Trip Runner. But among the 6 games up for grabs, you'll find space shooters, platformers, and even titles resembling Pong or Pac-Man. And all of it is set to some of the best chiptunes around, which I will not be using because they like to strike the hell out of anyone who does.
I know from experience.
When these released piecemeal back in 2020, I suggested Runner and Flux for those new to the series, but then they were all $5 a pop. However, now that the collection, which originally released on the 3DS, has been ported to the Switch, and that it's only $9.99, the Bit Trip Collection is one title that I think deserves to be in the collection of every indie game fan. What a great week! Clive and Wrench and Grim Guardians are definitely topping the list for me, but I am very interested in both Snake Core and Tyrants Blessing too. What about you? See anything that you'll be adding to your Switch's library? Let me know down in the comments. Also, swing by the Nindie Nation Discord if you want to chat more about indie games, non-indie games, find some more great deals, or just hang out with cool people. Nindies at Night is a go for this week, but I'm not quite sure what we'll be playing yet, so tell me if there's something you want to see, and if by chance I've got it figured out by Wednesday, I'll throw up the placeholder image right now. Either way, we'll be live right here on YouTube this Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern. As for next week, we've got Afterthought, a surreal art house platformer, Lucy Dreaming, a quirky point-and-click adventure, and a really promising Ori-like adventure called A Fox and His Robot that I'm quite intrigued by. But as far as today goes, we're all out of time. Thanks so much for watching, liking, subscribing, and sharing Nindie Nation with others. Until next week, citizens, I'm Jeff. This has been Nindie Nation episode 176. And remember, no matter what type of game you're looking for, Nindie Nation will be right here to help you find just the thing to keep your Joy-Cons synced.